Good morning to all of our attendees. We want to thank you all for taking this time out of your day to join our meeting today on the benefits of pre-planning funeral arrangements. Just a couple of housekeeping items as we begin. On your screen somewhere, there will either be a question and answer widget or a chat widget, so that if you have any questions during the process of this seminar, please feel free to type them in, and we will take a few minutes at the end to answer any questions that come in. At this time, we're going to turn the meeting over to our presenter, Jamie Aller, as she walks us through the simple steps to advanced planning.
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jamie Aller, and I've been in funeral service for the past 14 years now. My job is helping families prepare ahead of time for this often difficult topic to discuss. And we're here to talk about something today that will affect every single person, yet it's something most people have some difficulty discussing. But really, it's so important to address this and prepare for it ahead of time, not just for you, but especially for those people that you love. The fact that you're here today and have taken the time to learn is a great first step, so kudos to you. When we consider the significant events that in life that we prepare and plan for, things like getting married, the birth of children or grandchildren, graduation, retirement, we rarely just let these things happen without thoughtful planning. And like other major life events, funerals require planning as well. An estimated 34% of people over the age of 50 have pre-planned a funeral for themselves or for someone else. We can see those numbers growing each year as consumers become more aware that this can and should be done ahead of time. Most people, over 90% in a recent survey, agree that pre-planning is a good idea. So really the question is not why should I pre-plan, but why wouldn't I? The key reasons that families share with us for why they pre-plan and why it's important. First, to lift that burden for loved ones, both emotionally and financially. The second reason is to ensure that things go the way that you want them to. And finally, for peace of mind, knowing that you've done all you can for those you care about. So how much does a funeral cost? This is a question we get a lot. While the National Funeral Directors Association tells us that the average cost is around $7,000, this average doesn't take into account what we refer to as cash advance items. Cash advance items contribute to the overall funeral cost, but these prices aren't set by the funeral home. So some of those items would be cemetery costs, for example, the cost of the plot, the cost for opening and closing the grave, a headstone or memorial marker, obituary notices, the funeral meal, flowers, honorariums, and death certificates are a few of these items. A simple cremation can start just under $2,000, while a traditional full-service burial funeral could cost as much as $20,000. And funeral costs are typically increasing faster than the cost of living, about 4 to 5% per year on average. So that means today's prices could be double in 14 years. And hopefully some of you planning ahead of time are planning to be around in 14 years. So it is important to take care of this ahead of time. So when considering what type of service will work best for you and your loved ones, we'll discuss some of the basic options. And it's important to know that there's really no one size fits all when it comes to planning a service. When we use the term funeral, this typically refers to a formal service based on religious or cultural traditions where the body is typically present And because the body is present, funerals generally take place within a few days following the death, before burial or cremation. And a funeral home or a funeral can take place in a church, at a graveside, at a funeral home, or even at someone's home. While a memorial service is typically held without a body present, it can be scheduled days, weeks, or even months after a death occurs. And this allows time for family and friends to gather. In fact, as some of you may have heard about recently during this pandemic, a lot of families are opting to delay their services as they're currently being limited to just 10 people at a time. A memorial service can be elaborate or simple and really can be held just about anywhere. A few ideas: at a person's home, in a park, a graveside, in a church, at a funeral home. If you're looking for some unique ideas, I encourage you to take advantage of our free personal sessions that are offered. One of my favorite ideas for a memorial service was for a self-described sweet tooth, whose service was actually an ice cream social. We even had planned to have signs that read, "Life is short, so eat dessert first." So some additional options to personalize a service include military honors for veterans, a butterfly or dove release, photo displays, video tribute. We can raise funds for a favorite charitable organization, or you can have a meal hosted at a favorite gathering place, or even serving a favorite food item. I remember working with a couple recently who pre-planned for their favorite bakery to provide lefse for the meal gathering, which was a family tradition of theirs. So just a little brainstorming can result in a good idea to make your event special and personalized. And we're here to help with this. So when considering a service or gathering, it's important to remember that this is a gift for the people who need to grieve their loss and honor your life. When I hear people say, "I don't want a funeral," it's usually code for, "I don't want people to make a fuss about me." And that, of course, is human nature, but remember, it's also a basic human need for the living to honor loved ones who go before us. When we lose someone we love, ceremony is an important component of the healing process and a way to reconcile a loss. So keep in mind that funerals truly are for the living. We also have the option for those who wish to plan a very basic direct burial or cremation. Just know that anything planned ahead will provide that much needed direction for when the time comes, and you can always add to or change your arrangements at any time. If you're choosing a burial, you can pre-select a casket. Traditional cemeteries in our area require a grave liner or a burial vault, which can also be pre-selected. And finally, you will want to consider whether or what clothing or jewelry you might want to provide for a viewing. If you're choosing cremation and would like your cremated remains to be given to a family member, you might select an urn or other container. Other options include a decorative ceramic piece or having ashes even transformed into natural stones. There's really a lot of different options to make your cremation and memorial service very unique and personalized. Keep in mind that many of our families choose to rent a casket also before cremation takes place. So once you have an idea of what type of arrangements would best accommodate you and your family's needs, a cost estimate can be provided, and this information will be important when you're considering your funding options. An important question to ask is, if something happened to you tomorrow, how would your funeral expenses be paid? And for some, personal savings might be their first thought. For long-term planning, the potential for encountering expensive long-term healthcare costs does pose a risk to savings. In addition, a surviving spouse may need to rely on savings to supplement their lost income. And when we rely on other family members or friends to pay for funeral expenses, there's always the risk they'll overspend emotionally. Many people aren't aware that oftentimes when death occurs, assets passed to the kids are frozen during probate, which can mean that family is left to cover the bill before the funds are accessible. Sometimes this is for many months. Borrowing from family and friends might be an option, but asking for help can carry a heavy emotional toll. And finally, credit card or loan could be an option, but there are interest charges to consider. And most people don't want to pass a debt along to their family as a goodbye present. Another thought you might have is that you have life insurance. And life insurance is a wonderful option for passing a tax-free gift to survivors. It allows loved ones to maintain their standard of living after death. And funeral expenses are generally due at the time of arrangements, and life insurance generally takes weeks to process if all goes well. This can leave family to have to cover some of those expenses out of their pocket until their claim is settled. And by the way, in cases where death certificate might be delayed, this also can delay the timing of funds. In cases of accidental death or an autopsy investigation, it is common to see weeks or even months of delay in receiving those death certificates. So everything really hinges on those death certificates being available to file claims and to settle estate matters. Also, for long-term planning, life insurance with cash value is considered an available asset for long-term care payment. In other words, just like your other savings, most policies are not protected from creditors like nursing home. So fortunately, there is an alternative to allow you to avoid the pitfalls that I just mentioned. You can choose to arrange payment in advance with an irrevocable funeral trust, which is designed just for the payment of funeral expenses. Once you've pre-planned your funeral needs, you purchase a policy for exactly the amount needed. When the time comes, your funeral provider will ensure that your wishes are carried out and provide the products and services that you've pre-selected with no additional work for your loved ones. Your family will never have to call an insurance company to start a claim or worry about juggling funds. It's all taken care of. This is a smart financial decision for several reasons. First, you can secure prices. And as I mentioned earlier, funeral and cremation costs are estimated to double every 14 years. So this can be a significant savings for your family. You give yourself the freedom to make customized payments on your terms. You can pay in one lump sum or in monthly, semi-annual, quarterly, annual installments over several years. When a funeral is not funded ahead of time, the full amount is due and payable in a few days. So funding your arrangements ahead of time is going to relieve a huge burden from your loved ones, as the costs are immediately paid at the time of death with no interaction needed. The funeral home files a claim and receives payment directly, and if there are unused funds, they're returned to your estate. No one knows what lies ahead, and if medical issues require long-term care, your funeral policy, which is held in an irrevocable burial trust, will remain protected no matter what. Finally, what peace of mind not to have to worry about how your family will cope with all those decisions that have to be made quickly at the time of death. You're getting everything in order for them. Planning ahead is really a gift for those you're leaving behind. And I'm sure everyone here can attest, when someone we love dies, emotions are raw and tensions exist even in the best of relationships. The potential for disagreements is far less when key details are mapped out for your family and paid for. They'll be able to focus on their healing process and be confident knowing that they're following your wishes. And you can achieve peace of mind knowing you've done all you can to make this tough transitional period a little easier on them. So we guide you through the 3-step process. First, we organize the documents that will be necessary. And just like other important documents that you may have, like power of attorney, a will, or maybe even a trust, your funeral plan should include some important documents prepared ahead of time. In addition to mapping out your detailed final wishes, we can include an authorization for final disposition, which ensures that someone will be in charge of executing all aspects of your final arrangements. For example, who will get the urn? When will the service take place? Who's allowed to attend the family's final viewing time? So the designation is not legally addressed in a power of attorney or by your estate's executor. So this can be an important peacekeeping document for those families that have potential for disagreement. And let's face it, many families who have a rift never anticipated that they'd be that family before it happened. We also create an outline for the obituary and death certificates for your file. And lastly, your family would not have to call an insurance company to start a claim or worry about juggling funds to have this paid for. We can help you take care of that ahead of time. So where do you begin? Well, hopefully you'll be inspired today to take action, and we'd like to offer you an opportunity to put some of the things you've learned to work for you and your family. My option to meet with families includes face-to-face, as well as the ability to do a Zoom meeting. For those of you who might want to include family members on the discussion, Zoom is a great way to bring everyone together from the comfort of their own home. And we would just extend that option for you. So we'll end today with some of the contact information if you'd like to take advantage of that free planning session. And as we part, we'd like to just end with one of my customers mentioned to me that they never wanted to plan for their own funeral or anyone else's for that matter, but they realized that if we just plan for ourselves, that no one would ever have to plan for anyone else, and that would just be easier for everyone. So as we part today, again, we want to thank you for your time and attention, and please feel free to reach out for more information. And Andy?